All right, Brian, we are live. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Danny. Appreciate it. It's good to be here, man.
I've been very interested in having you on the show, Brian. You have a very impressive background, a really interesting background. Tell us where you're from, kind of what interests you, what sparked you to go in the route that you're in now. I think just give us a brief overview about where you're at right now.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, as far as like my interests, I feel like I've always been a very curious person, and I've always been very into storytelling. I've always loved to read and write ever since I was a kid. Those were two of my like biggest passions, and just storytelling, I think, has always been something I really loved, like reading books, reading about other people's stories, and so. Especially in the realm of sports, as I've like always been very active and played sports, and I've always been fascinated with that. And so, like, sports broadcasting was always something that I wanted to do. And it just felt like something that I couldn't do for a while. Like, I don't know, when I was younger, I guess I didn't really have the confidence that I could do it. So I kind of initially was going to do like architecture and then like psychology. And then I just realized, you know what, like, why don't I go for this sports broadcasting dream that I've always had? And then I just kind of started to take actionable steps to get towards that career path. I went to San Francisco State, which was a great school for broadcasting and sports broadcasting. Really good BECA program, which is a broadcasting program, which I know you're familiar with. And it was just a good opportunity because there's a lot of media outlets in the Bay Area. And that gave me a chance to get in, get my foot in the door, intern, and work my way up towards working at different places. And I've been able to build on that, which has been really cool. And right now I'm working more so in the video game space, but it's been really fun. And I think, yeah, ultimately I just love I don't know. I think content is really fun in this day and age. And I'm grateful to have been able to be a part of it for almost like pretty much 10 years now, working or interning in the field.
And I know you mentioned SF State. I'm a fellow graduate at SF State. So you're a fellow Gator. I'm a fellow Gator.
Yeah.
Um, and I've known you for years. I've known you when you and I were at Papa Murphy's working at a pizza parlor prior to both of us starting our undergraduate degrees. So
Yeah.
I've known you for a long time. I've probably known you over 10 years. I used to see you on campus once in a while. And, as you noted, you are a BECA major. It's a really great major at SF State, Brian. So tell us about how that kind of helped you get to where you're at now, like the impact that major had at SF State, and then just kind of walk us through how you sort of commenced your career in broadcasting. I know you were interning at some of these major local stations, Brian, such as KNBR, I think NBC, and I'll let you stipulate, Brian, but can you just tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I think as much as the BECA program was solid and I did gain experience, I think most of what I really learned was in the real world, interning. And my first internship was at Quran 4 Sports Department, which was at my junior year of college. And that was everything for me, because I remember telling myself, like, my first 2 years of college, I was kind of just didn't really, I don't know, I wasn't really making much progress in my career aspect, I guess. And I realized, like, I was like, okay, it's kind of like a make it or break it year for me. Like, I got to start doing something. And I started to take my BECA classes, and there was somebody that I knew, fraternity alumni, that I had met a couple months prior to him offering me this internship within the sports department. And it was just the perfect thing for me, because I remember telling myself, if I could just get my foot in the door, I'm never going to look back. And thank God, knock on wood, that's been the case everywhere I've been. I told myself, at any time I start somewhere, I'm either, like, as an intern, I'm either going to get asked to intern there again. I'm either going to land another internship, or I'm going to get hired. Were my three options, I told myself. And yeah, thankfully, every place I went to, I kept doing one of those three things. I went from Cron 4 Sports Department to NBC Sports, and then I interned at NBC Sports, and then I started interning at KMBR 680, which is now 104.5 as well. And then eventually I got hired. By the time I graduated college, I was working at KMBR and I was working at NBC Sports. And that was a beautiful thing, to not only just have two jobs. I mean, like, ideally you have one job that pays you well enough, but a lot of times in sports media, you have to work a couple of jobs. And I was more than happy to do it, though. It was cool to be on the TV and the radio side. And I was proud that two places that I interned at, I was now working at, kind of like the minor league system where, you're working your way up to the majors. Like I made it with the organizations that believed in me as a college kid. So that was pretty cool. And then I just kept working there until years later, one of my friends that I used to call SF State basketball games with, he got a job with Visual Concepts, which is the video game developer behind NBA 2K. And he was a 2K TV producer, which is the weekly TV show there. And basically some people moved around and there was an opening, and I had already been doing commentary for the game because, again, my same friend had asked me like, hey, you want to audition for this new role that's coming up? And I was like, yeah, because, we already had the chemistry from doing it in college and we were friends, and we got that gig and we started doing color commentary. Well, he was play-by-play. I was doing color commentary. And then, yeah, the role evolved from a contractor doing the voiceover work to now being a full-time producer for 2K TV.
Tell us about what you do as a broadcaster, Brian. You talked about you were calling SF State games, which is Division II basketball, NCAA D2. I'd go to those games a lot. So you started off as that, and I'm sure that was something you put on your resume that probably aided you in getting some of those interns, right? And then also, Brian, just prior to you answering that, can you talk about also like what you did as a broadcaster at KNBR and at some of these local stations? Like, what was your role?
Yeah, at KNBR was production. I was a producer, like behind the scenes, preparing stories for guys like Murph and Mack, Gary Radnich, Larry Kruger, Ryan Covey, Pecan, Patrick Connor, you name it. I kind of worked with almost everyone there. But the ones I mentioned were the ones I really worked with the most. Adam Copeland for sure. So yeah, just like finding stories, finding audio, finding sound bites to play on the show. Booking guests was a big thing. That was one thing I really worked hard at, because you can tell like when certain shows, a lot of times the guest that you get on a show it's all up to the producer. Like, what can the producer do? And I took great pride in that. I always wanted to have the best guests, even when I was working on like the 10 p.m. show, which would typically get like, not the best guests because it's a tough timing. I would work really hard to get really good guests, and then we'd record them earlier and air them. And it was a cool thing to be like, yeah, we might not have the most resources, but as a later show, but I was going to bust my balls to get the best guests, the best content I could. So a lot of it was, production and behind the scenes work. And I would do on-air stuff every now and then at KNBR.
At 2K was really when you started getting more, of course you mentioned you did the SF State basketball games, and that's broadcasting at its finest. But at 2K is when you did more of the broadcasting. Now at 2K at Visual Concepts, you're using your voice more in that sort of role as opposed to, behind the scenes production, which they're both of paramount importance. I mean, sometimes it's, more than half the show starts with what's going on behind the cameras. Mm-hmm. But is that kind of when you started doing more broadcasting, Brian, using your voice?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I was doing it here and there at KNBR for sure with like a couple podcasts or live streams, or with Murph and Mack. I would be on the air every morning announcing the guest list. And so I would get on air time every day with them, and then chime in here and there on the mic with the show, on the show. But in terms of like, yeah, I guess I started to really get more airtime within 2K TV, appearing on, I guess like segments there. And then also, yeah, the in-game commentary where people play the game and they'll hear my commentary on the game. So that was when I started to really, at least like mainstream wise, step into my own, I guess, and start to get more airtime.
What parts of the game are you involved in? Like what's your involvement in the game? And have you been involved in specific series like NBA 2K20? I know they're coming out with a 2K26, or has 2K26 been out, Brian? I don't want to digress, but just real quick.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Tell us about, if you don't mind, Brian, just kind of stipulating more, because you got a really cool job, working at a, company like NBA 2K. So many people love sports, love that video game, grew up playing it, still play it. It's an awesome opportunity that you have, and it's a testament to your hard work and the experience you have. But I'd love to know a little bit more about what you do. If you can just give us some insight.
Yeah, man, it's been, I think as of today, it's been, I want to say 7 games now since 19 that I've been a color commentator in the game. And then 2K TV has been about 5 years full time, a little more than 5 years, and that consists of it's a weekly TV show that airs within the game, and we're teaching people how to play the game. We're highlighting community creators who are teaching people how to play the game. It's really a community-driven show and just helping users understand the game more in a fun and educational way. So we might cover how to shoot better or dribble better, or highlight a creator in the Netherlands who is making a bunch of cool builds. It's just like a weekly TV show that's all things NBA 2K.
How can people find that? Is that aired like on YouTube? Is it posted on YouTube?
Yeah, it's posted on YouTube and it airs every week within the game too, the new games.
You guys go live, or is it pre-recorded and posted?
No, it's all yeah, we work on it throughout the week, and then we air it Friday for the next week.
What would viewers search on YouTube to find that?
NBA 2K TV.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
If somebody's just playing the video game, Brian, are there any parts in the actual game in which your voice would be heard?
Yeah, in the WNBA is where I'm one of the color commentators. So it's my friend Blake who does the play-by-play that I went to college with, and he really helped me. He had the big assist of a lifetime to help me get with the company as well. And then I'm one of the color commentators, and then we got our guy Tim Swartz as well, do it as one of the color guys too. So it's a 3-man booth, kind of like the Breen, Van Gundy, Mark Jackson reinvigorated.
Nice. But can you talk about, Brian, just for viewers, maybe for students who are still in college, looking to graduate, who have just recently graduated, what advice would you give to them? You've been able to land a great role at 2K. It's such a hyper-competitive market, Brian. I can only imagine if you're just putting a resume in at 2K, there's thousands of applicants. So what kind of advice would you give to stand out and to land opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, it's always people say like, oh, it's not what you know, it's who you know. But I would push back on that and say it is what you know. A lot of it is what you know. Like, you really have to know what you're doing, and you have to you have to as simple as it sounds, like you have to be good. Like, you have to be good at what you're doing. You have to learn from people. But it is obviously both, what you know and who you know. And I think I just kept putting myself in positions to learn from people and opportunities that I could just do anything. Like, I would do radio, TV, and just trying to pick up as much as I could from anyone I could. Like, I firmly believe that we can all learn something from everyone. And I was very fortunate at every place that I was, whether it was NBC, KMBR, Cron. I had great mentors and teachers who were people who worked at those places that kind of took me under their wing and would teach me stuff. And that was a big help, like the Ryan Coveys, the Pecans, the guys that believed in me and would give me a shot to do things was very instrumental to me. And I think it's just you just have to be yourself, really, because there's so much talk about, finding your niche, so to speak. And really, at some point, I realized that you are the niche. There's nobody that thinks like me. There's nobody that works like me. My perspective is so unique, and that is of incredible value. And so I'm constantly just leaning into what feels right for me, what feels good to me. And that's treated me well over the course of my career.
Of course, the who you know element, the networking is always, imperative, but, building your own competencies and, talk about landing the opportunities. So, Brian, being in the interviews, because you're someone who is, you're a broadcaster, you're very articulate, you're very well spoken, you're very well presented. You got good energy, and these are things that are going to help, very enthusiastic. And these are things that you probably have naturally, but I'm sure also you've had to, kind of work on your presentation. What advice would you have for students in that regard? The interviews are really such a great opportunity for you to land the job. Arguably the most critical phase in landing a job.
Yeah, I think you just have to work at it. It might seem like things come naturally to me, but because of how far I've come, but I've come a long way. When I was younger, I used to be so shy. I would be, frightened to give a speech in front of 20 kids just to, like some book report or something random. I think naturally I am a very introverted person, but I've really worked hard at becoming very social and being more comfortable being on camera and just having a presence. Because at some point I realized, like, okay, if I want to broadcast, potentially to thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of people one day, I can't be shy. You cannot be shy and do that. Or you might be, but you have to really push through it. And I was like, you know what? It's just probably not going to work if I'm this shy. Like, I have to really put myself out there. And I've really worked on that since high school. I feel like I started to break out of my shell, and just a lot of it actually, I think, is like my friends and I used to just do a lot of stupid pranks in high school, like public stuff, like falling in public, or like pretending to be Target employees, like random things like that, that made me not care so much what people thought about me. And like, as silly as it was at the time, it was very instrumental to me to, again, not care what people think about me. Because I think everyone struggles with that, whether you want to admit it or not. I think everybody does. And that kind of set the foundation for me to like really just start breaking out. And then as I've gotten older, I just really make it an effort to just, I don't know, be more social, be more out there, and just find out who I am. Because you're right, the interview process is very important, but you just have to be yourself and trust that, the right opportunity will find you. If you're yourself, and you I would say you don't want to try to present this image of yourself as somebody that you're not, because then you could land a role that isn't even right for you. You got to just be yourself, and the right opportunity will find its match.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Brian. And how instrumental was the SF State Becca major? Like how impacted was it? Was it a major where they would help you find internships?
Not really. I think it was definitely good to get some real world experience. Like, I had a radio show and a podcast, and we would do news segments and have broadcasting experience. So it was a good start. But again, I really think most of what I learned, like in my day-to-day life, and as I progressed in my career, I find myself, there's a few things that I remember from college that I still think about. Like legendary professor Marty Gonzalez, I still think about certain things he taught me. But for the most part, I think what I've learned in broadcasting came outside of college, outside of the classroom. It was in interning, writing scripts, doing stories, finding stories, being on air, like just doing the damn thing. Because I don't know, I feel like as much as you want to learn and study about something, like, you get better by doing it and getting the reps in.
I'm going to pivot back to 2K. I'm curious. Do you know Ronnie 2K? Have you met him before?
I have, yes. I have met Ronnie 2K on multiple occasions. Cool guy. Yeah. It's nice to see him whenever I get the chance to.
Have you had the chance to meet any NBA players?
King's player that we did play against was a guy, Keon Ellis, just a dog, dude. I love Keon Ellis. One night we matched up against Keon Ellis in the rec, and one of my friends is our coworker is a huge Kings fan, and we're like, oh man, this is gonna be a matchup, And he ended up, him and his squad took us down, but we had the idea, like, dude, if he's on 2K, like, we should try to get him on 2K TV and run it back, or have him play with us. So we ended up getting him on the show and playing with him. We played a rec game and won. That was probably one of the most fun 2K TV episodes I've been a part of. To play a game with Kings guard Keon Ellis and win in the rec was super fun. Other times I've met Tracy McGrady as well. It was fun to talk to him and just come up with questions that our host would ask him. I met Kevin Garnett at MoCap too. He was really cool. A lot of energy. I mean, KG, another guy, is just a dog, dude.
Yeah, Tracy and KG with Big Ticket. These are first ballot Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
The video with Keon Ellis. Are those videos on YouTube? Like, if somebody were to watch it?
Yeah, you could type in Keon Ellis NBA 2K TV and find it. I can't think off the top of my head what episode it was, but it was this past season, in season 11.
That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, check it out. You'll see some buckets from your boy right here.
For sure. I'll check it out. I mean, I've seen you get hot. Brian, I've seen you get real hot at the
I got game, dude. I got game.
I've seen you get a hot Brian, I've seen you get a hot hand at 24-hour fitness. I don't know how that hot. I don't know how hot the hand would be with Keon Ellis closing out on you, 20 feet out from the basket.
Yeah. Well, thankfully when we played with him, so it was nice. He was setting us up. There were a couple like pick and rolls we ran, like me screening, and he would hit me beautifully on a roll for a jam at the rim, which was super cool. Yeah.
So, Brian, I wanted to ask you about the clip when you were working at KNBR and you were in the press, and it was a Steve Kerr presser, and you asked him a question. And I'm going to play the video. We'll hear the question, and then we'll come back and ask you about it.
In your playing days, we know about the scuffle you had at practice with MJ back in the days. Does going through something like that as a player kind of help you understand where the guys are coming from, Draymond and Durant are coming from, in terms of just two competitive guys that really want to win?
Yeah, I mean, when you play at a really high level and you're competitive, things happen. Every team that I've ever been on, things have happened. By the way, I kicked MJ's ass.
So that's the clip. It's just like iconic moment that kind of went viral at the time too. Like it was a big deal at the time. Like I remember hearing it. Yeah. So tell us about what brought you to ask that specific question. I think this was after a certain incident.
This was the Draymond Durant incident when, Draymond or Durant wanted the ball at the end of the Clippers game in LA. And then I think what the story is now is that there was a physical altercation in the locker room. Draymond suspended, or did they suspend him? I can't remember now. They must have suspended him or fined. Maybe they just fined him. But that was, dude, that was insane. That was definitely the best soundbite I've ever gotten out of any question I've ever asked. And what you just can't see from that clip is how tense of a press conference that was. Like, I'm not even someone that's been in a lot of press conferences. Like, I've been in my fair share through media access over the years, but this was like, it just wasn't, you kind of just had to be there to experience it, I guess, because before Steve Kerr talked, it was Bob Myers, and Bob Myers was very tight-lipped and not talking a lot. This whole situation, the Warriors didn't really want to expand on. They were trying to be very, again, tight-lipped about it. They weren't really going into it in too much detail. And it was a huge story at the time. And this is the Warriors dynasty, a physical altercation where one of the best players is telling the other player, we don't need you. We won before you. Like, that was huge. And I just remember sitting in that press conference, and I remember thinking, like, I told my coworker, Adam Copeland, I said, dude, someone's obviously going to ask about the MJ fight, but if no one else asks, I'm going to ask, because I wasn't even really supposed to be there. Like, I had a media credential, but I wasn't a reporter or a journalist or anything. Like, I had the credential to be there. And so the questions are coming in, they're coming in. I'm like, dude, no one's asked about this yet. I'm looking at Adam. I'm like, no one's asked about this, dude. Like, I'm going for it. Like, I'm going for it. And I was so nervous. You can even hear my voice listening to it again. I can hear how nervous I was, but I'm really proud of myself for stepping up to the plate and asking that, because it got the most viral soundbite of that whole incident probably. And I can't believe nobody else was asking that. This is in a press conference room with like the Tim Kawakamis, the Ray Rattos, the Anthony Slaters, the Bruce Jenkins, the Scott Ostlers, the Ann Killians, you name it, all these Bay Area media, industry, like, just, I don't know, mainstays, the veterans of the industry. And maybe someone would have asked eventually if I didn't, but I was like, dude, I'm so glad I did. And what you can't see in that clip too is I kind of gave like a fist bump to myself, like in the presser after Kerr finished his answer, because I knew the magnitude of that clip. And dude, it was just an all-time career highlight for me. It makes me laugh every time I watch that.
Yeah, that was an excellent clip, and you definitely got a viral soundbite. And it's not even that, like, of course, that question was gonna, it was a great question. It was a pressing question at the time, because now I remember that situation with Draymond and Kevin Durant. But it was an applicable question too. It was a pertinent question, because at the time this was a big deal, sort of looming in the locker room, and there were these questions about, well, how's it affecting the team?
Yeah, and who better to ask about a player-to-player fight than the head coach of the team, who got in an infamous fight, player-to-player fight, with arguably the greatest player of all time, and MJ. And that's just typical Steve Kerr humor too, that I kicked MJ's ass. Like, I don't know how many coaches would make that kind of riff. That's why I love Kerr. He's lighthearted. That was probably the biggest laugh that presser got, because obviously, again, it was very tense and serious, but leave it to Steve, no other than Steve Kerr, than to make a riff like that. That was legendary.
Yeah, I mean, how viral did that clip go at the time? Like that response from Steve Kerr, and it was a great question. It's like has viral written all over.
I mean, yeah, you type in now, just Steve Kerr kicked MJ's ass. There's not millions. There's tons of articles about it. And I remember it was on First Take. They used it, like obviously every Bay Area media outlet used it, but nationally it really got picked up to where when you know First Take is playing it, then that's when you know like you penetrated to some mainstream media, because I mean, First Take obviously is not what it once was, as I like to think, but it's still like, you know, one of the biggest shows out right now. And it's just funny, yeah, that it made it that far. Just a guy that didn't even have to be at that press conference, but showed up and asked the question. It was just a good reminder for me to just always believe in yourself and to just go for it too, because like in my heart of hearts, I knew it was a good question. And yeah, I just was like, dude, I don't care. I could embarrass myself, but I got to ask it. What do I have to lose? You know?
Yeah, and that's kind of part of the game too. Like, of course, you don't want to just ask a question from an angle of, oh, I'm going to clip farm this and I just want this to go viral, because then it can, you know, arguably, sort of impact the, you know, kind of the professionalism of it all. But that was a very professional question, and it had sort of that, you know, like that potential. And, you know, that's kind of the name of the game too, is to get a great soundbite, to put that in a column, to put that in a piece, you know, to use that in your show, you know, so that's a great moment, Brian. It was a pleasure talking to you and kind of learning about your background and how you're at 2K now. You have an awesome job. It's really cool that you're a broadcaster and you've come a long way. You've had a lot of different experience. And, you know, I really appreciate you joining the show, Brian. Thanks for your time.
No problem, Danny. Thanks for having me, man. I had a lot of fun.